Hello and you're very welcome to this year's Irish Grassland Association sheep event for 2021. We're delighted over the next 3 days to bring you our online virtual event in which we will feature 3 very interesting farmers with 3 very unique stories. We're delighted to be on the farms of Alan Cole in Athy in County Kildare, Peter McGuinness in Trim in County Meath, and our final farmer coming all the way from Scotland is Neil McGowan. All 3 farmers will have a very interesting story to tell, and hopefully it will be of interest and a lot of tips available that you can use at home on your own farms. I want to thank the involvement of all our farmers. In the Irish Grassland Association, everything we do depends on our host farmers to contribute and make their information and their stories available, and we very much appreciate the support of all 3 farmers. I want to thank Alan Bohan, the chairman of our sheep subcommittee this year, the organising team for this event, and all his subcommittee members who have contributed so well to putting together this virtual event. And also, as always, we're very much indebted to the back office work of Maura Callery in the Irish Grassland Association for all her work. My final thank you before we hand you over for the main event is to thank our sponsors, Mullinahone Co-op, who have been a long-term supporter of our sheep event in the Irish Grassland Association, and we very much appreciate their support again this year. And I hand you now to James Manley from Mullinahone Co-op, who will say a few words before we proceed with our event for 2021.
Thanks, Dan. It is a real pleasure for Mullinahone Co-op Eurotags to be supporting the Irish Grassland Association Sheep Event 2021. Farming sectors are an important part of our animal identification business at Mullinahone Eurotags. As Ireland's largest seller of official ID tags, we believe the cornerstone of any sector in agriculture starts with its traceability, and this is why we offer our customers the full range of Allflex animal identification products, both official electronic EID and visual tags for both cattle and sheep, and we also offer a full range of genomic DNA tissue sampling tags. As technology is becoming more and more a part of everyday farming, Mullinahone is leading the way by offering the full range of Allflex AgriDent electronic stick and handheld readers for use with EID tags, which helps reduce labour costs on farm with its ability to accurately and quickly collect and store key data to aid with the weighing, treatments and movement of animals. We would like to wish every success to the Irish Grassland Association with their Sheep Event 2021, and we are looking forward to hearing from some very key, interesting speakers from the event. At Mullinahone Co-op Eurotags, we are here to work with you.
Hello everyone, you're very welcome to the last part of this year's Irish Grassland Association virtual sheep event. As you can see, our format is somewhat different. We're on Zoom, as I'm delighted to be joined by Neil McGowan from Perthshire in Scotland. Neil, alongside his wife Debbie and their family, are farming at Incheoch farm, where they run a sizable beef and sheep enterprise. A key focus on that farm is to produce a functional, robust, efficient animal. And they're achieving this through excellent stockmanship, a lot of data recording, and making use of genetics. And it's been a benefit to their own farming system and that of their customers. They take an innovative approach to their business. They developed a brand and developed an on-farm sale that's quite successful each year, both for the cattle and sheep enterprise. And in recognition of this, both Neil and Debbie have been recipients of numerous awards within the industry, and duly deserved. Neil is also a Nutfield scholar, and we're going to hear a little bit more about how some of the people he has met has influenced his decisions for his own farm and his outlook on the business. So with that, I'm going to hand over now and we'll welcome Neil on, and we'll hear a bit about his farming system. Neil, great to have you on. Really appreciate you giving up your time to be with us.
Thanks for having me. I'm pleased.
Look, Neil, in an ideal world, we'd have loved to have you over to actually address a conference with, and hopefully we will be able to do that in the near future. For the time being, we're going to have to stay online and we're going to have to go with the Zoom format. Neil, you have a presentation prepared to outline some of the background to your farming system, some of the changes you've made and how you go about your business, including the ram sale. So what I might do, Neil, is I might get you to start sharing your screen and we'll get an opportunity to get a bit more detail on that enterprise. I'm very much looking forward to it.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me. This is a few pictures of just who we are and whereabouts we are. It's Neil and Debbie. Debbie's my wife. And the pair of us have really run the sheep system here at Incheoch since before we were married, really, in about, we got married in 2000. So we're involved here along with my parents and my sister a wee bit on the farm, and we've got we've 2 full-time staff with us as well, really on cattle and tractors. And we've got a couple of kids that we use as slave labour quite a bit in the sheep yards. You can hopefully you can see that map there is just sort of roughly in Scotland where we are. And the photograph in the middle top there, the dog is overlooking quite a lot of the farm just below us there, and we're looking due east. We can't quite see the North Sea, and that's looking over Strathmore and really some wheat country, strawberries, broccolis, peas, potatoes, and you know, some of the better land in Scotland's quite close by, although we're a bit above it. And the bottom left pictures the top end of the farm looking north, and sort of 30 years ago, everything you would see there would be running blackface ewes, but it would really now just be the closer hills. One of them is planted, obviously. Another one is still running blackface ewes. Another one is running cross ewes, a lot of Clem cross, Texel blackface type ewes up there. And the back hills now have no sheep on them. They're grouse, deer, and you can see Scotland's biggest ski resort there. So that gives you kind of an idea where we are. And what we do, probably, we've got, we're on about 1,100 Clin ewes. We used to run a crossbred flock here, and we tried to develop a system that suited us in the farm, and then we were trying to look for a sheep that fitted that system. And sort of halfway along that journey, Debbie and I got married, and when she arrived, she came with 40 Clin ewes, and they suited the farm really well. And the ewes we have now, the whole flock now originates back from these original 40 ewes that was 20 odd years ago. So that's where the Clins came in, really. I guess we've asked these Clin ewes to do 3 things for us, and we've asked them just to, firstly, just they need to behave like a sheep and do the basic sheepy things right. Like they need to lamb and they need to suckle, and then don't upset the shepherd and don't get lame and things like that. So just do the basics. They need to then do a job to be proud of. So we want plenty of quality prime lambs by the end of the growing season, and so we need an element of production out of that, and they need to do that efficiently and time and again. So what we're looking for from that's a sort of thrifty ewe that's robust enough to last in our environment. So with these sort of these objectives in mind, we put together a recording system, or a recording program, to try and promote these traits within them. And from that, there's been a sort of type of ewe that's emerged from that, is a kind of a sturdy ewe that's sort of 65 to 70 kilos, that scans about 185% for a May lambing. We've whilst lambed some draft ewes earlier on a little bit, and the scanning percentage jumps up a bit. But about that 185 to 190 is we find pretty ideal for an outdoor lambing in May anyway, without having too many triplets. And we wanted the pure lambs to grade an R or a U at 3L or H fat level at sort of 19-20 kilos. So that's the type of sheep that the program's sort of given us, I suppose. There's about 120 Texel ewes. We've had Texels My father got into Texels in the late 80s. And after 4 or 5 years of breeding with them, we decided that we're probably not going to get very far in the pedigree world. So we'd be better just paying attention to the commercial market. And we've very much done that ever since. So the ram at the bottom there is a homebred ram. That's our current, one of our Texel stock rams. But the sort of objective for the Texels on the farm is really to cut the time of the lambs, cut the time that lambs have on the farm. So, you know, a wee bit more growth, but it's really about cutting the time. We want them to add a bit of carcass value if possible, but I think maybe growingly it's about without any added hassle. We can't have added problems because they're Texels out of this Lleyn ewe. So that's the Texels. We're on about 220 suckler cows here. There's 40 to 50 pedigree Simmental cows that we really keep to try and sell bulls from. My sister has a slowly growing herd of about 8 Angus, I think there is, which we also use some of her bulls too. And the rest are they're commercial cows, but they're pedigree recorded Lleyn cows. The Lleyn's a native Scottish breed with short-horn Highland ancestry, and but they're very run very commercially. About half of them are bred pure for our own replacements, and we whilst get a few bulls sold from them. And the other half are either crossed with the Simmental or the Angus. And we've run this working genes ram sale for 13 years now, and it started off we sold. First sale was sold. I think it was we sold about 40 off the 50 rams that we had in this wee old shed up a glen in a ring that was tied up with string. And we've grown that number last year over to just about 100 rams. And for the last 3 years, we've offered our bull selection at the sale as well. So that's sort of roughly what we do. That's a wee bit about just the basic, our basic sheep system, or a year in the life of the Lleyn ewe here. She's lambed outdoors, and that was a gimmer with a pair that were pretty quick on their feet this year, in a day that there was actually some blue sky at lambing time. And the ewes spend most of their time on permanent pasture, but lambs they'll spend a wee bit of the late summer on red clover fogage aftermaths, and then some of them also on forage crops after that. Ewes are wintered behind an electric wire on swedes, on a break. They get a break, a shift a day, either with straw or silage as for a bit of roughage. And I think we're pretty aware that we've got a very low-cost sheep system, but that's maybe built on the back of a kind of high-cost cow system. And that if we changed the whole farm over to sheep, we'd then have a high-cost sheep system. I think the cows are absorbing quite a lot of the sheep costs, maybe, in that we've got quite a lot of cattle grass available for ewes. For tupping and for early in the season grazing. So a wee bit about how we got into recording kind of what we do. So if we go back 20 odd years, May lambing was, I guess it had been done before, but it was a new thing again. And there was a college May lambing group that John Vipond ran. And a lot of these meetings would go along to most of the commercial guys that were experimenting. We were learning from each other's mistakes, was what we were doing. We were experimenting and making mistakes and trying to learn from each other. And at the end of every meeting, the conclusion seemed to be that it was the ram breeder's fault. And as a ram breeder, I kind of took that to heart a wee bit, in that lambs there was too many lamb losses, and that was down to lambs not sucking or not being vigorous enough, and that was down to the ram breeders not doing the job properly, really. Or there was too many lambs to tail because, well, these sheep always have dirty tails, and that was down to the breeders not doing anything about it. So actually they were maybe right. And it just got us thinking about, well, what if the ram breeder tried to do things right by a commercial farmer's point of view that's lambing outdoors? So we set about really trying to do that. So what our commercial use was learning. It was really about learning from that male lambing group. Was the start with our commercials. I've got here, from that came these flock objectives, and we try to keep going back to that to make sure that any work that we are doing recording wise is relevant. We do quite a bit on, or a figure that we use quite a lot is this ewe efficiency figure. And if I was to drop everything, if it was to keep only one thing about what we're doing, this figure's probably the most important one for us on the farm. It's just recording the combined weight of the lamb at a certain time, and we used 100 days from the mid lambing, divided by the weight of the ewe going to the tup, and that gives us a number of, well, you can call it if it's a 1, it means she's reared as much weight a lamb as she was going to the ram, and that's really what our target is. We also record lambing behaviour, just how the ewe behaves at lambing. We give a quick score. We just jot it down in a notebook, which is we'll have a score system to shorthand write down lambing ease, mothering ability, and lamb vigour, and it's just a record there that can remind you when you're looking at a ram later in the season that actually, remember, we had to help that lamb out, so he's off in the other pen. We're signet performance recording, to keep that. I think that's a really good tool for measuring production anyway. And more lately, we've got into other things like selection for worm tolerance or resistance, lamb survival, longevity, and I think looking to the future, these sort of health and fitness traits will become more important. So what does that mean on the ground? There's a picture here on the top of Debbie. The two of us go around the ewes at lambing time. We're all lambed outside, and most of our work at lambing time is recording. So we'll EID read the ewe. We'll EID. We'll tag the lambs. We're just, when we've got a hold of them, we slip a ring on them and record these things. We actually also now take a birth weight, and we take these behaviour scores. We did that on over 1,200 ewes this year, including the Texels, both of us. We do quite a bit of weighing just through the yards, but now we've got rid of clipboards and springy scales and got onto EID and yellow boxes, and that's become an awful lot easier than what it was in the early days. We ultrasound scan quite a bunch of lambs. We do 1 day's worth of scanning of the clins, which is usually about 250 maybe clin lambs, and we'll do a day with with all the Texel lambs with ultrasound. And then there's the day that the kids absolutely dread, which is poo sampling day. So the potential ram lambs, and also a bunch of the clin ewe lambs are given a a worm challenge, and then we take round about 300 individual fecal egg counts that are related to that. We've got a poo sample for each ear tag number, and that's feeding into our fecal egg count ABV. So the kids don't like that, but they're a big help. And then brings us to the ram sale. This working gene sale, as we've sort of branded it, started off with we were selling a handful of Lleyn rams at society sales, and more commercially focused rams were getting sold at home privately, and we weren't very good at asking a price for these rams, and there was a lot of people. Everybody wanted first pick of the rams, which is fair enough. So we thought we could, if we held a sale, we could give everybody first pick, really. And about the same time, we were selling Texel rams at the local market, which we had always done. And but we found ourselves in an increasingly competitive feeding race, and we were already losing that race. And I think we were, when you look back now to how we feed our rams now for the sale, which is we're as soon as there's grass, there's no more feeding, and we're trying to get through the winter without any concentrate either. So the rams are presented for sale just off grass. When even back then we were feeding. It's appalling how much we were trying to feed these rams, really, and so getting these things together was why we really wanted to have the sale. And there was a bit of chat about the time of just grass-fed, just forage grass-fed rams, and we thought that we were confident that the Lleyns could do it. We weren't very sure about what the Texels would look like if we didn't feed them, and but we thought we had to give ourselves a bit of an edge, or if we gave ourselves that challenge to produce them with no feeding before the sale, it might give us a bit of an edge in attracting somebody to the sale. So we did that, and for sure the Texels didn't look as strong, but the buyers that got them were good enough to come back again, and they said that although the rams didn't look as good as maybe they had in previous years, by the following year they were looking as good as normal. So we get an auctioneer, we build a ring, and we get folk together, we put on a barbecue and have a bit of hospitality. Us shepherds don't get out much, and I think an event like that should be fun. I think when you look at the hard economic facts of it, it costs about a ram a year to put on the barbecue, and another one maybe to buy the beer and the whatever else goes on, and it's paid back every year. It's a good investment, and it makes it good fun. And we try to get locals and friends and around to have a bit of people and to try and create a bit of atmosphere. And I think the day, and I'm sure the day will come when nobody comes up to buy the rams, but I hope there's enough of us there that nobody will really mind, and we'll have a good party anyway. Last year, obviously, we had to do something quite different, and we had to adapt a wee bit, and we went with this year bid system from New Zealand. John Scott from Fern Farm and I and us got together, and we saw this program working at a bull sale in New Zealand, and it seemed very straightforward, and we used this system. So that was the screen that everybody saw at the sale, or as the sale went on. This was taken just about, I think, probably as the sale was starting to close, and there was the lots with the red numbers have not got a bid yet, so that was the reserve price on them, and the blue numbers are what the current bid is on these rams, and the buyer number at the side of them. And you might notice that one of the lots is highlighted orange, the 115 lot. So what that means is that, or what that really means in reality is that that lot's just been bid on. So within the last couple of minutes, that lot's taken a bid. So it's a fresh movement on the screen. And when that happened, there was a bell went ting, and Debbie and my mother sat down at the bottom and were watching the screen. That was all the people really that were at the sale. There were no buyers there, and the pair of them sat listening to the bell tinging, and the more it tinged, the more they giggled, and they really enjoyed the day, I think. We still involved the auction company. They weren't very keen to be involved at the start, but we were very keen to have their involvement, just because we think it adds a bit of authenticity to the trade and what we're doing. And we spent a lot of time on the 3 weeks before the sale showing people around. Some of our clients didn't come to see rams. We took videos of all the rams, and I gave a pretty, I think people appreciated, I gave a pretty honest appraisal of the rams as they were coming in. I pointed out their faults as well as their good bits, if they weren't terribly visible anyway. And I think people appreciated just the honesty of that, and I think that helped some guys, particularly from a distance. We sold more rams to Shetland. Well, we sold more rams to Shetland than we'd ever done before, and the Outer Isles, and probably the far north of Scotland because of that. Going forward, there's quite a big debate about whether we go back to the auction or run with the your bid system again, but with an audience, hopefully. We'd have no ring, I think. The rams would all be penned. We'd just have a couple of big screens up, and they'd be bidding by smartphone or speak to someone in the office, and they'd do the bidding for you. The auction has the sort of traditional values that we like that, and I think that's part of what we do. But the internet system it helped people who were maybe busy harvesting or big distances, and yeah, one of the buyers in New Zealand said that this going to a live auction with that was it was less like going to an auction sale and more like a day at the races, and he'd enjoyed it. Kieran, I hope we're all right for time. If we are, I'd just like to share just a wee minute. I did a Nuffield scholarship in 2015. It was sort of entitled "How to Select for Efficiency," and I looked all over the world for answers to this question. One of the places in the photographs there, just 50 visits on this, and just a couple of highlights. The Angus bulls are at Timania in Australia, where they sort of showed me that recording in big numbers gives results. In 8 or 10 years of selection for marbling, they'd cut the time that it took for the feeders in the feedlots to get cattle marbled enough to send to the Japanese market by 70 days. So they'd cut it from, I think it was 350 down to 280 days. So that was 70 days on a finishing ration of feeding that their eventual, with the feedlot customer anyway, was saving money on. So I mean, they did a huge amount of work. Abacus Bio, the guy on the left here is Peter Fennessy. I think he's been involved with what you're doing with Sheep Ireland, I think. And Peter, I went to see him about sheep, and he said, "Oh, look," he says, "your sheep, the performance, the quality, it's fine." He said, "Just let them get outside and be sheep for a while. That's all they need to do." And then we spent the rest of the afternoon discussing cattle, which was fine. But he said sheep are easy. Dave Nichols is the guy with a red shirt and the braces. Dave Nichols, he's the guy then who he went to the local fair or show as a teenager, and he came home and he told his father that there's a lot of hungry people in the world, and hungry people are dangerous people, and he wanted to grow up and feed these people. Then the world would be a better place. And to do that, he would like to have an Angus heifer, because that was the way he would breed Angus bulls, and that was the way to increase beef production, and the world would be a better place. When the real reason was that he told me that the girls that were showing the Angus heifers wore tighter jeans and were a whole heap better looking than the ones that showed the fat steers. And they were an awful lot better looking than the ones that were showing the pigs. Anyway, Dave now sells over 600 bulls a year, all under the principle that you don't sell the bull that your client wants, you sell him the bull that he needs. And his lesson for me on performance testing was when him and his brother got the Angus heifers, and they started breeding bulls. And fairly early on in the days of performance recording, you were to send your top bulls or your likely bulls to a performance test station, and they would feed these bulls together and measure them, and there'd be a sale at the end of it. And there'd be the best ones and the worst ones. And they discussed that, and Dave was a bit skeptical, because he said to his father, he said, "Well, what if our one doesn't win?" And his father told him, "Well, that's fine. You just buy the one that does win." So, it's pretty straightforward. And I think there's really nothing to fear in this on that way. Peter Black is in Southland, New Zealand, on the bottom left picture here. I think he's 78 in that photograph. And I think he's lambing about 2,000 recorded ewes, of which 600 of them are pedigree Texels. Along with his wife, the pair of them did the lambings and recorded that number of sheep. At that point, he is pointing to a ram. We're talking about something about genomic selection for foot rot resistance, and if it was a good idea or not. And he's pointing out, he's telling me that, look, he says, if you don't do something about selecting for a trait, you're just saying that what you've got now is acceptable, and that's not acceptable, so we've got to do something about it. And then the other two pictures are from the blackboard picture is it's the formula for genetic gain, and it doesn't really matter what it says, but I've seen it at some obscure conferences. But this one was written on the wall on the smoko room at Wairiri, and I think it just the smoko room at Wairiri is underneath the shearing shed, underneath the wool shed. And there's a lot of people go through there, I guess, but they're all shepherds, and they're all sheep guys, and they've all got I think they mostly have welly boots on when they're reading that. And I just think that's it just shows the strength of the link between the geneticists and the breeders in some other places, and I think that's maybe somewhere where across here anyway, I think we're maybe lagging behind a bit. anyway, that was just a wee bit on what we are, where I got it on this Nuffield, and none of that really answered the question. And then the last picture is around the ring of the ram sale at home, a few months after I got back. And there's a shepherd round that ring from a farm not far away from here. And he's been buying rams for us for a while. And it was that day he told me the answer to the question. The question I'd searched the whole world for. He came and he said, realistically, if my lambs hit 19 kilos and grade R3L, I've kind of ticked the quality box. He said, you know, if we get more than that, we get a bit more. But as long as we get there, we've ticked the minimum level. We've got it. He said, we've analysed our system, and the only ones that we really struggle to get into that quality level are the ones that have died along the way. And that to me just brought home really what I'd been looking for. And I think from that statement, the focus for our breeding programs probably changed into reducing costs and reducing wastage. We're looking quite significantly at a lamb survival EBV, which we have. We're concentrating on getting to an appropriate scanning percentage. We're looking at longevity, disease resistance, and just behaviour of the ewe and just what that impact is. So there was just a wee thought I thought I would just leave you with. So I hope that's not rumbled on too long, and you can understand me. And I hope you've enjoyed seeing some of the pictures at least. Thank you.
Neil, I have to thank you. That was a fascinating talk. So it was really interesting, the various aspects of it. Look, if you don't mind, there's a couple of wee questions. I might just tease out a little bit more with you. I might just start at last. I thought, the field trip was very interesting, and the people you meet. And I have to admit, I like the coaches, let them be sheep. And I suppose at heart, that is your ethos in it, is let them be sheep. You're breeding an efficient system. But just to ask you, but like, you've been influenced by a lot of people you've met, and we all go to talks, we hear these things. That challenge of taking that home and bringing it into your own system is something that both you and Debbie have done. You've been very innovative with your business model, but also your breeding program. How big of a challenge do you think it was for you initially to start making some of these changes? Because they all come with a risk. What was the prompt for you to make that change in the system?
I think if you go, we didn't have much to lose, I think, probably would be the easiest answer. By the time we came home to farm, our family had only been at this farm a couple of years at that stage, and the sheep flock, commercial sheep flock was new to us, and we'd tried various different commercial crossbreds, and nothing was working terribly well, and there wasn't a lot of interest from the other team members here in the sheep. And when we came back, they were more than happy to give us sheep and let us work away with it. And I think what we risked when we set the ram sale up was we were getting a good sale for some Lleyn rams, some pedigree Lleyn rams, and that was, we were maybe going to lose out in that. And we have lost out in that market, but some of the pedigree guys came in and bought from us at home anyway. But I think you need to decide who your market is, maybe, and who's there for the long game. And I think commercial sheep farmers are, they're the bread and butter, really.
I might come back to that a little bit later on, but it's challenging yourself and taking that risk initially. Look, I'm sure one of the questions that our audience would love to know a bit more about the scale of that flock. Like, you have 1,200 ewes lambing down. How do you manage recording it lambing down? What does the system look like, and who's doing it?
Sometimes it looks a bit of a mess, Kieran. It's just Debbie and myself that do all the recording and the lambing, really. And I think that's quite important, really. Just yeah, just being in charge of what's happening, because look, 90% of the records get taken quite easily, but the last 10% maybe, or 5% are it was a set of triplets, and you know, we lifted one of them and we twinned it on a ewe and we can't find it, and you know, it's written down on a board somewhere, and it's probably maybe 10:30 at night by the time we're doing this, and there's, you know, you couldn't really ask anybody else to do that, I think, and having the ownership of the having that level of ownership on making sure the data is right, I think is very important. It was one of the things maybe that I did learn when I went on my Nuffield. I really thought that our population wasn't big enough, and what we would do, what did we need to do to make a bigger population? And my mind's gone blank on a name here, but there was a very, very highly thought of geneticist told me that 1,000 good records were more valuable than 10,000 mediocre records. And I thought that, you know, there's a lot to be gained from that.
I suppose, Neil, there's no substitute for that hands-on experience. You know what you want to produce at that point. Look, it probably leads me on to my next question. And I've heard you speak about this before. You're quite ruthless in your culling, probably, but you're quite ruthless in what you lay into your nucleus flock to produce them rams. You might just explain that to us a little bit more. Like, what is the criteria from that 1,100 clean ewes to actually make it into the breeding flock for rams?
Oh, sure. We've there's sort of 3 different flocks of clins, although they're mostly run together as one for most of the year anyway. But on a spreadsheet, they're split 3 ways, and we don't lamb huggets. We lamb them as gimmers, as two-tooths. So the two-tooth lamb in a sort of holding flock, a B flock maybe, and we wouldn't automatically. They're bred pure and they're recorded, but they go into a B flock and they get a number. So these lambs are automatically castrated at birth. They're the males. We're not going to keep them unless one. I think there's maybe 2 this year that have impressed us so much that we've kept them. And then the ewe lambs out of that flock are probably sold, but we might keep some. And then from our experience in that flock, they've gone 2 directions. They've either come up into the stud flock or they've gone down into the terminal flock. I think we looked up last year's two-tooths that came in. There was somewhere around about 300, I think, and there was about 100 went up the way, and about 100 stayed where they were, and there wasn't 100 left to go down the way, but there was 100 went down the way in some form anyway. At the end of the day, and just because you get into the stud flock doesn't mean you stay in the stud flock. There's a pretty big analysis, and we have a good look at the numbers each year and decide who gets to stay.
So basically, they have to perform at the first year and they have to perform subsequently or they get dropped.
That's right. And when we have the sale, we're quite. I'm quite proud of the amount of information that we can give our clients, and I'm aware that maybe there's too much information sometimes, but we use all that information, and some clients like to look at bits of it, some clients like to look at other bits, and some guys just like to know that we've been checking up on these things and the information's there and they pick the sheep they like anyway. But you know, we're looking at that sort of data all the time, and if we're going to have a ram at the sale, I don't want it to be there with I don't want it to be there with its background figures saying that actually its mother, its mother went away last year. She only lasted 3 crops, so you know it was you know, she's not been a very successful ewe. So I want to have successful ewes behind these rams. So I think that's the easiest way to do it, is just make sure you're keeping rams out of the best ewes.
and they work each year. It's the consistency of that production. Look, I'm conscious of time, but just like the ram sale itself, that's not something that happens overnight. There's a lot of time and effort put into that. Like, how did you go about setting it up, maybe? But who does the work for the ram sale essentially? Like, because you're on farm, which has advantages, but it's not without effort.
No, it's not without effort. Yeah, we get somebody in to run the barbecue for us. I think the rest of it we do ourselves. Like it's, we set up the breeding program and the recording system. We designed a logo. We published a catalogue. We put the data into the catalogue. We do the adverts ourselves. Some of them aren't very professional looking, but we do it ourselves. We bake the cakes. I don't bake the cakes, but some of the rest of the family bake the cakes. We wash the sheep and we tie up the gates with string, and we make sure all the paperwork's in order, and we get the auctioneers to come in at the last minute and sell the rams. And I think that's sort of how it works. It's quite a big process, but we get a lot of help from some very overqualified neighbours and friends.
I suppose, Neil, that's one thing about putting effort at that. When it pays off on the day, it really becomes a rewarding experience. Look, the final part I want to ask you, and it's perhaps not the right question to ask, but it's certainly one of interest. Building a brand, and I've chatted to you about this before, like building a brand around what you're producing in terms of, look, we know the system you're producing, your customers know what you're producing for a certain type of customer. Your breeding program is designed that way, how you present the rams is designed that way, your sale is designed that way. And I suppose, Neil, what I'm kind of coming to is that builds confidence in what you're producing. And with the move online last year, do you see more customers coming back to you year on year now, buying online, maybe without even viewing the rams? Or where do you see that going forward? Like, how important is that brand and consistency to your customers?
I think it's really what the pedigree business is all about, though, isn't it? The brand and the reputation. I think I'm under no illusion that what's gone before us has really helped what we're doing, and that my father's been producing and selling honest bred bulls and rams for a long time before we were, and asking a fair price for them, and giving the backup service, and taking rams back that don't work, and doing all these things. He's done that, and his father's done that, and my mother's father's done that as well, and it all becomes part of what we are. And I think that takes a lot of time and, well, generations, and I think I think that's helped us along the way there. And I'm just building a bit of trust, I think. Yeah, and I think that's really helped us last year when we go online, and people were buying. We were quite prepared for some sheep guys maybe buying a ram that they hadn't seen, and we tried to give a pretty honest appraisal of the rams on the commentary, and we could take extra videos and photographs for people. WhatsApp, we managed to master WhatsApp. But I think probably 80% of the rams sold to people that had seen them beforehand. We were convinced that nobody would buy a bull without seeing them beforehand. And we were kind of unsure really how many bulls we would sell. And then we didn't get really that many people come to see the bulls. So we were a bit concerned about really how the bull sale would work. But at the end of the day, we sold, I think we sold 2/3 of the bulls on offer, which was about normal. And of the bulls that sold, I think there was more than half of them were bought by people who had not seen these bulls before they bought them. And I was blown away by that statistic. I really didn't think we would do that.
Clearly the brand is working. Neil, I'm very conscious I've taken up a lot of your time. Look, it's been fascinating, really interesting. So many aspects that we could talk to you more about. And I only wish we could actually had you over in person for this. And look, hopefully we might be able in the near future. I think what you're doing is a credit to yourself and Debbie and the whole family, and you duly deserve any praise you get for it. And look, hopefully we'll be able to catch up with you again at some point.
Well, the one place that was obviously missing out on my Nuffield trip was Ireland, and I sort of I wanted to go, but anyway, it didn't happen. But,
look, and hopefully after this,
catch up with you and some of the, if there's anybody watching this, we'll see some of the audience.
There's an open offer there for you, Neil. I'm sure Manny would be delighted to have you over. Listen, it was great catching up. You really appreciate this. Thanks very much for your time.
So that brings us to an end of our IGA sheep event for 2021. On behalf of the IGA Sheep Committee, I'd like to thank our three speakers. We had three excellent speakers this year. On Tuesday night, we were joined by Peter and Tom McGuinness in Trim, County Meath. Brilliant farm to visit and lovely to get out and see it. We've seen how Peter had travelled to New Zealand, seen how grass measuring was working well for them out there, brought that technology home, implemented it on his home farm, and then when joining the partnership with his father Tom, really brought the partnership from strength to strength, and it looks to be very strong for the future. We then on Wednesday night went to Alan Cole in County Kildare. We've seen on Alan's farm that he has excellent grassland management, and he's using grassland management and fecal egg sampling to drive lamb performance, and from that he's ensuring the sustainability of the flock for the years ahead. And finally, we were joined by Neil McGowan from Scotland. So it was lovely to get a look at his farm, see his presentation of a larger scale system than we might be used to. And the technology he was using was performance recording, and using that data to select and breed high performing animals that are robust and while also maintaining a low labour input per animal. So once again, look, I'd like to thank the three speakers for their time and their families as well, because it's a big commitment for them and their families to give up their time so generously for events like this. I'd like to thank Christy Watson for interviewing Alan Cole and Kieran Lynch for interviewing Neil, and also to Stephen Bergen for the video recording and producing of the event. To Maura Callery and the wider IGA Sheep Committee for all their help and input and making sure this event all ran smoothly and it was as successful as it was. And then I'd like to also thank Mullinahone Co-op for the generous sponsorship of the event. As you know, without support like that, it wouldn't be possible to run these events, so their support is greatly appreciated. Finally, I'd like to thank you, the viewers, for tuning in. As we all know, it's not the event we would have liked. We'd have loved to be out on farm, but with COVID restrictions, that wasn't possible this year. So we hope the event that we put on for you, although an online event, was interesting and informative, and that there'll be something you can take away from each of the farmers to implement in your own farm. The theme of this year's event was innovative practices to improve flock management and performance. And we can see that across the three speakers. Each of them, they're all engaging with new technologies and new practices, and they're implementing them on the farm. So we hope maybe this event will have given you the push to look at some innovation that you can implement in your own farm to improve your farm performance and sustainability into the future. So to conclude, I'd just like to thank you all again and all of those that were involved. We hope you've enjoyed the event for 2021, and we look forward to meeting you back out on farm in 2022. Thank you very much.